In this masterpiece of a play by William Shakespeare, we chose to do a musical score for Act 5, Scene 8, because this scene depicts the demise of the main character Macbeth, as foreshadowed by the witches in Act 4, Scene 1. Important textual devices in the scene include the theme of ambition and greed, the motifs of darkness and insanity, and the characterizations of Macduff and Macbeth. We chose a musical piece to illustrate these devices because music is how many people choose to express themselves, and we thought it would be an interesting concept to convey the literary aspects of the scene without uttering a single word. I played the drums, Aydin played the clarinet, and Peter played the trumpet. We will each address how different musical aspects can represent these different literary devices. I used triplets for the scenes revolving around Macbeth, because triplets are not very common in music, and when I emphasized certain notes, it was meant to emphasize the unbalanced nature of Macbeth, and how he's no longer living the natural life he should be, after killing Duncan, who was a servant of God. I used eighth notes and rolls in 4/4 time for the character of Macduff, because it is the standard meter in music. This is meant to characterize Macduff as being standard, and therefore this is meant to make Macduff appear as an honest and noble being, as we would expect a Thane to be. It also helps us sympathize with him because he is still able to persevere, with his head held high, after losing his family to the tyrant Macbeth. The use of the drumroll when Macduff is in a scene is relevant, because drumrolls are often used for announcements by royalty, such as announcing the death of a king, which is why it was used in this scene to announce the death of Macbeth. The change in meter is meant to show the contrast in ambitions and greed between Macduff and Macbeth. The shorter triplets are a symbol for how Macbeth talks in short and fast phrases, due to his guilt from the despicable murders he has committed against Duncan, Banquo, and more. These acts resulted from his overambition, which also reveals Macbeth to be a dynamic character, as it is evident how at the beginning of the play Macbeth is against committing anything foul for his ambitions of fair titles. The standard meter is meant to show how Macduff is completely sane, and how his greed and ambitions have not overpowered his being. Macduff has not committed any heinous actions or has been corrupted by the supernatural forces that are the witches. He acts completely orthodox and respectable, which makes him the more honorable character and ruler than Macbeth, who is going insane and is finding it hard to live with his immense guilt. By using a shorter meter for Macbeth, we were also attempting to create a tone of emergency for the viewers. This urgency shows how Macbeth has become paranoid, which was the reason he unnecessarily murdered Banquo and the residents of the Macduff castle. The standard meter of Macduff creates a calmer tone, and as we make the calm tone more dominant at the end, it creates a victorious mood, because the standard calm sound has triumphed over the uncommon and frantic sound of Macbeth.
When we were writing the music, we decided that because Macbeth had turned into an evil character, since Shakespeare used the motif of darkness to represent this evil, we used low, dark notes during Macbeth's music. This helps the viewer know that Macbeth is evil, even without knowing the background of the play. Throughout Macbeth's music, there is also a lot of octave changes to represent his drastic change throughout the play. At the beginning, Macbeth was an honest soldier in the king's army, and was rewarded well for it. However, by the end of the play, Macbeth was an evil tyrant, and so the change in octaves represents the change in his character. However, Macduff is Macbeth's complete opposite. When Macbeth's piece is playing, it is a trumpet fanfare, representing his nobility and the goodness of his character. Also, we use mostly high notes in a normal key, so that Macduff's music would sound more royal and proper, as opposed to Macbeth's. Throughout this play, Shakespeare incorporated the motif of darkness and death. Throughout the play, when people mentioned darkness, there would be death, or they would be referring to a character dying. Because we knew that at the end of the scene, Macbeth would be dying, we used low dark notes to symbolize the darkness and death motif. In this piece, we also used lower and darker pitches during the battle scene, so we could demonstrate a clash of powers. Throughout this piece, we wrote in loud trumpet sounds, which represented Macduff, and we used loud clarinet sounds to represent Macbeth. This clash of instruments signifies the battle and that there should be tension. The mood that Shakespeare creates in this scene is tension, and so we tried to represent that in our music with a clash of instruments. Also, Shakespeare makes this scene feel dark, so he used lower notes and darker pitches to represent this.
In the music we composed for this scene in Macbeth, there are many different aspects of music that we consider to help develop characters, themes, and tone. The one I will be talking about is transitions. Transitions are how the music flows and how one section of the music transcends into the next. We had some very drastic transitions, such as very quiet and smooth to very loud and obnoxious. We use these transitions in many different scenarios to help represent Shakespeare's characterization of Macbeth and Macduff. First of all, when Macbeth is fighting and taking swings at Macduff, you'll notice that there are very harsh sounding notes, and the notes do not tend to flow smoothly together. This was purposely done to show how Macbeth has gone insane. Macbeth has ignored the warnings that the witches gave him and proceeds without any caution. This is really made clear in how the music transcends from one section to another. Next we have Macduff. Macduff, obviously, is in many ways a hero. He is fighting Macbeth in an attempt to rid Scotland of this evil. To show his righteousness, we have very grand music playing, similar to fanfares, and with very smooth transitions. These transitions were used to help develop the character of Macduff and how loyal he is to his country. The transitions also help develop themes and motifs in the play. First of all, the wild, unorganized, and frantic transitions when Macbeth appears on the screen help develop guilt and how eventually it leads to madness. Whenever Macbeth is taking swings at Macduff, or when Macbeth is walking alone, the music is very rushed and unorganized, which reflect his state of mind. Macbeth is not being cautious like the witches told him to be, and is proceeding arrogantly with the war. The next motif that is developed is letting the eye not see what the hand does. This motif is used throughout the play to describe Macbeth and Lady Macbeth's actions, and in a piece of music we tried to develop this motif. The music, particularly the transitions, are very unorganized and messy, leading the audience to believe that it was written by a composer who was not actually looking at his music or not seeing what his hand was writing. And next, though this isn't really a theme, we tried to demonstrate how Macbeth is a dynamic character. We had very quiet dynamics at the beginning of the piece, and in the transitions there were large dynamic changes from soft to loud, demonstrating how Macbeth is a dynamic character. And finally, we have mood. And the transitions were used, they were mainly focused on theme and characterization, though they did help develop mood. The transitions were very wild and unorganized around Macbeth, which reflected not only his state of mind, but the atmosphere around the battle. Overall, transitions were used to show characterization, themes and motifs, and mood.
This scene is the conclusion of the entire play, and so we felt that we would honor this by making the conclusion of the music live up to its source material. In the last few measures, you can hear us start to play a scale that gets higher, then drops down to getting low again, and then replays it up back to high. This is the build-up to the final measure of our song, just like Shakespeare used the rest of the play to build up to this scene. Shakespeare effectively incorporated the theme, tone, and characterization throughout his play, so we tried to honor this by incorporating it into our piece. We hope you enjoyed our piece, as well as understanding why we made the decisions and added the musical aspects that we did. Thanks for listening.